I and my ex-wife have been married for 8 years, together for 11, and we have a son. 5 years ago, I gave up my rising career as a chef to become a stay-at-home dad at her insistence. And now I'm dealing with the aftermath of her announcing she wants a divorce because she's outgrown me and has been having an affair with a colleague. I never thought I'd be posting here about my marriage imploding, but here we are. Some background. When I met Claire, I was working as a sous chef at a respected restaurant in our city. I was making a name for myself and moving up. Claire was an attorney at a corporate law firm, making significantly more than I ever would in the restaurant industry. We fell in love, got married, and everything was great for the first few years. When Claire got pregnant, we had to make some tough decisions. She was on track for partner at her firm, and her earning potential far outweighed mine. After many discussions, I agreed to put my culinary career on hold and become a stay-at-home dad when Jacob was born. Claire insisted this made the most financial sense, and I eventually came around to her perspective. The transition to full-time parenting was rough at first, but I eventually found my groove. I came to love being Jacob's primary caregiver, and I kept my culinary skills sharp by making family meals and taking on occasional catering gigs when Claire could watch Jacob. For a while, things seemed okay. Not perfect, but workable. Claire was climbing the corporate ladder, working long hours, and I was holding down the fort at home. I told myself this was the arrangement we'd agreed to. I'd given up my career, and she was building hers to support our family. It seemed fair at the time. About a year ago, Claire made partner at her firm. That's when I started noticing concerning changes. The hours got even longer, but more alarming was her emotional distance and growing criticism of what she called my domesticity. She started making digs about me being essentially a housewife, or joking to her colleagues at dinner parties about her house husband while I was in the kitchen preparing meals everyone but her complimented. The situation came to a head yesterday when Claire sat me down at our kitchen table after she got home from work. She told me she wanted a divorce. She explained she had outgrown our relationship. Then she said she'd been seeing someone from work, a fellow attorney named Marcus, who she described as a real man who matched her ambition and status. I sat there as she continued, telling me she found my domesticity increasingly feminine and unattractive. The irony that she was the one who pushed me to take on this role in the first place wasn't lost on me, but I was too stunned to point it out. When I finally asked about Jacob, she waved off the question. She said she was willing to give me primary custody because her new chapter required focus on her career and relationship. In other words, she was abandoning not just me but our son as well. During our conversation, her phone rang. It was him, the affair partner. I watched her demeanor transform instantly. She stepped outside to take the call. She walked away from our divorce conversation to talk to the guy she's been cheating with. I later learned that Marcus Guy is also recently divorced, which makes this whole thing even more pathetic. When she returned, she jumped straight into logistics, as if the emotional part of the conversation was already done and dusted. She would move out immediately to her downtown apartment. She'd pay child support, but wanted minimal custody obligations. "You can even keep the house," she said, dismissively. She went upstairs to pack an overnight bag, while I sat with Jacob, who had fallen asleep on the couch watching cartoons. I couldn't process how the woman who once pressured me to give up my career to raise our son now wanted to walk away from motherhood entirely. I noticed she only took newer items, clothes and accessories she'd bought after her promotion. All the older stuff that represented our history together stayed behind. Even her wedding ring was left on the dresser. The worst part was when Jacob woke up just as she was leaving. He called out for her, and she hesitated before giving him a pat on the head and continuing out the door. The look on my son's face is something I'll never forget. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew something was wrong. Now I'm trying to figure out how to explain to a 5-year-old why mommy doesn't live at home anymore. He keeps asking when she's coming back, and I don't know what to tell him. He's confused and hurt, and so am I. I'm angry at Claire for what she's done, but mostly I'm worried about Jacob and how this will affect him long term. The divorce is moving quickly because Claire is being financially generous, keeping the house, good child support, etc. But it all feels like she's just paying us off to start her new life without the burdens of motherhood and a husband who doesn't fit her new self-image. Her lawyer already sent over the initial paperwork, and it's actually pretty favorable to me financially. I'm still processing everything, trying to maintain normalcy for Jacob while feeling like my world is collapsing. I've started looking into part-time work I can do while still being Jacob's primary caregiver, possibly getting back into catering. I need to rebuild my identity beyond just being a stay-at-home dad, especially now that the family part of the equation has been shattered. Claire's friend has apparently been in her ear about this whole thing. I met her a few times at firm events, and she's recently divorced type who's always talking about how liberating her divorce was. I'm starting to think she had more influence on Claire's decision than I initially realized. The most frustrating part is looking at all those family photos still on our refrigerator. There's one from when Jacob was born, Claire holding him, me beside them. We looked happy. I don't recognize the woman who sat across from me yesterday and destroyed our family. I've got a meeting with a lawyer tomorrow to discuss custody arrangements and make sure Jacob's interests are protected. I'm not interested in being vindictive, but I also won't let Claire waltz in and out of Jacob's life whenever it's convenient for her and her new relationship. He deserves better than that. Edit. Rip my inbox. I can't believe how many of you have gone through similar situations. To the people asking if I saw any warning signs, probably, but I was so focused on Jacob and making our arrangement work that I missed them. And yes, I've already changed all the passwords and contacted the bank. For those suggesting she'll come back when her affair falls apart, part of me hopes she does, just so I can have the satisfaction of shutting the door in her face. I'm at a loss about what to do next. Any advice about helping my son through this, while also processing my own feelings of betrayal, would be appreciated. Now for the first update. It's been 3 months since my last post about my ex-wife wanting a divorce, and I'm still blown away by all the support. Seriously, thank you all. I promised I'd update when there were developments, and boy have there been some. So much has happened since Claire walked out on us to be with Marcus. The divorce was finalized pretty quickly, which should have been a red flag. Claire was surprisingly generous with the settlement. I kept the house, got primary custody of Jacob with substantial child support, and even got her to agree to a college fund contribution. At the time, I thought maybe she was being decent despite everything, but now I see she was just eager to start her new life without baggage. Her word, not mine. The first month was brutal. Jacob kept asking when mommy was coming home, and trying to explain to a 5-year-old that mommy doesn't want to live with us anymore without completely destroying his image of her was challenging. The child therapist I found has been helping, but Jacob still has nightmares and has regressed with potty training. The poor kid is just confused and hurt. Claire's visitation schedule started as every other weekend, but she's canceled more than half the time. Always with the same excuse. Big case, important client, emergency at work. I've been documenting everything, keeping a detailed log of every canceled visit and shortened day. When she does show up, she brings expensive toys but barely engages with Jacob, then seems surprised when he's clingy with me instead of her. I've started taking small catering jobs that I can manage while Jacob is at preschool. Nothing fancy, just preparing meals for elderly folks in the neighborhood and the occasional weekend event when my parents can watch Jacob. It feels good to be cooking professionally again, even on this small scale. I forgot how much I missed it. Shout out to Kitchen Dreamer, who encouraged me to re-enter the culinary world. About 2 weeks ago, I got texts from some mutual friends that Marcus dumped Claire for a younger associate at their firm. I didn't respond to any of them. Honestly, I didn't think much of it until 3 days later, when everything exploded. I was in the kitchen making dinner when the doorbell started ringing repeatedly. Then came frantic knocking. Jacob had just gone down for a nap, and the noise woke him up. I was already annoyed when I swung the door open. Standing there was Claire. She pushed past me into the house before I could stop her. Jacob came down the hallway, and Claire immediately knelt down. "Baby, mommy's home," she said. Jacob looked confused and clung to my leg instead of running to her. The look on her face was almost worth everything she'd put us through. Almost. I sent Jacob to play with his toys in the living room, where I could still see him while Claire and I talked in the entryway. She launched into this whole speech about making a terrible mistake and how Marcus was just using her and had filled her head with all this divorce empowerment garbage. "I've come to my senses," she said, grabbing my hand. "I threw away a beautiful family for nothing." I just looked at her and asked, Your realization conveniently came after Marcus dumped you for someone younger? Yes, I actually said this. Thank you to everyone who told me I needed to be stronger. You should have seen how fast her face changed. For a second, she looked furious. You think I can't find someone else? Marcus is the one missing out, she snapped. Then immediately her expression softened again. But I don't want anyone else. I want my family back. I asked her to leave and said we could discuss co-parenting arrangements when she was calmer. She tried to argue, but eventually left when I threatened to call her mother, who has always liked me better, if I'm being honest. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was so wrong. Within 24 hours, I had calls from Claire's mother and sister telling me how relieved they were that Claire wanted to fix the family and how they always knew she'd come to her senses. Then my own parents called, suggesting I should consider reconciliation for Jacob's sake. Apparently, Claire had been making the rounds, telling everyone she'd made a terrible mistake and was determined to win back her family. The pressure has been relentless since then. Friends texting to tell me everyone deserves a second chance. Family members sending articles about the benefits of forgiveness. Even my cousin called to say, "At least she's trying, man." I feel frustrated here. Seriously, is my family just conveniently forgetting that she cheated and then abandoned her child? Nobody seems to remember that Claire didn't just leave me. She left Jacob too. She literally said she wanted minimal custody obligations so she could focus on her career and new relationship. But now that the relationship is over, suddenly, she's Mother of the Year? What's really concerning is that Claire has started showing up places where she knows we'll be. Jacob's preschool pickup, the park we go to every Saturday morning, even the grocery store we always shop at on Sundays. It's not coincidental. Our routines haven't changed in years, and she knows them all. Each time she acts surprised to see us, kneels down to hug Jacob, who's still confused and standoffish with her, and then tries to engage me in conversation about how we're doing. When I keep it brief and focused on Jacob, she gets this hurt look as if I'm being unreasonable. I've tried explaining to my family that I'm not being vindictive. I've actually been facilitating Claire's relationship with Jacob despite her inconsistency. I'm the one who has to comfort him when she cancels at the last minute. I'm the one who has to explain why mommy missed his preschool art show. But they just keep saying things like, people make mistakes, and children need both parents. Some of you warned me in comments on my original post that she might come back if her relationship failed, and you were correct about it. At least now I'm prepared. I'm documenting everything, staying calm, and focusing on what's best for Jacob. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't wearing me down. Edit, to answer some common questions. No, I have zero interest in reconciliation. It's completely over. 2. Yes, I've spoken to my lawyer about her showing up uninvited, and we're monitoring the situation. 3. Jacob is in therapy twice a week, and it seems to be helping. Though it's a slow process. My parents are visiting this weekend, and I know they're going to bring up reconciliation again. I've been practicing what to say without losing my cool. Anyone have scripts for setting boundaries with well-meaning but misguided family members? Thank you all again for your support through this nightmare. It helps knowing I'm not crazy for wanting to maintain boundaries with someone who threw us away once already. Now for the second update. Update 2. I really thought the drama with my ex-wife was finally settling down after my last post, but apparently Claire had other plans. As many of you predicted. Seriously, are you all psychics or something? Thanks for all the comments and support on my last post, which got locked after it hit the front page. Rip my inbox. It's been 6 weeks since Claire showed up at our doorstep, crying about how she made a terrible mistake after Marcus dumped her. I honestly thought after I shut down her reconciliation attempt, she'd back off and we could focus on co-parenting Jacob properly. Boy, was I wrong. Claire is trying to win me back, or win back her perfect mom image. She's showing up to all of Jacob's preschool events, considering she missed his birthday party 3 months ago for a client emergency. She's sending gift baskets to our house with notes about how much she misses her boys. The latest one included a photo album with pictures from when we were dating. Her image has changed. She now shows up in casual clothes like before her promotion, hair in a bun, minimal makeup. She brought cookies to Jacob's preschool. His teacher mentioned it was nice that both parents are involved in baking. I didn't tell her I recognized the cookies from the bakery downtown. Claire transferred them to her containers. She never baked even when we were married. I've been going to this single parent support group at the community center, and it's been helpful. There's this guy, Keith, whose ex did something similar when her affair blew up in her face. He's been giving me good advice on maintaining boundaries. The validation from people who've been through similar situations has been a lifeline. Shout out to Keith if you somehow find this post, man. Jacob's behavior has been improving with therapy and our consistent routine. The nightmares are less frequent, and he's back to using the potty properly. His therapist says kids pick up on stability, so I've been working hard to keep things predictable for him despite Claire's random appearances. Last Saturday, my parents invited us over for dinner. They said it would be a nice break for me not to cook, and Jacob could play with their dog. Seemed innocent enough. I'm an idiot. We arrived to find Claire sitting at the dining table next to my mom. My sister was there too, which was surprising since she lives 3 states away and hadn't mentioned visiting. It took about 2 seconds to realize this wasn't just dinner. It was an intervention. My dad cleared his throat and said, "Son, I think you know we're all here because we're concerned about your unwillingness to consider reconciliation with Claire." Claire immediately reached for my hand across the table and launched into a speech about growth and forgiveness. "I've done a lot of soul searching," she said. "I know now what really matters is family." My sister started talking about how forgiveness is strength, not weakness, and how children from whole homes have better outcomes. She kept using phrases like "for Jacob's sake" and putting aside pride while looking at me. I sat there in silence, trying to process the betrayal of my own family ganging up on me with Claire. When I finally spoke up, asking why nobody seemed concerned about Claire's complete personality transformation or her previous abandonment of Jacob, my mother interrupted me. "She made a mistake," my mom said, patting Claire's hand. "She was influenced by that awful divorced friend of hers. Everyone deserves a second chance." I looked Claire directly in the eyes. "And this reconciliation desire has nothing to do with Marcus dumping you? He helped me see what really matters," she said softly. Claire started crying, talking about how much she missed Jacob's bedtime routine, a routine I know she rarely participated in even before the divorce. She was typically working late or claiming exhaustion when it was time to read stories and tuck him in. The tension increased when my dad suggested I was being stubborn and unforgiving and using Jacob as a pawn. I stood up abruptly, knocking over my water glass in the process. Jacob looked up from his toys in the living room, concerned at the raised voices. "I am not preventing Claire from being in Jacob's life," I said. "In fact, I've been facilitating her relationship with our son despite her inconsistent efforts. I've been the one explaining to him why mommy cancels visits at the last minute. I'm the one comforting him when she promises to come to his t-ball game and doesn't show up." My sister had a look of discomfort. My parents exchanged that "he's being difficult" look they've perfected over the years. I announced we were leaving and went to collect Jacob's things. As I was helping him put on his jacket, Claire followed me to the front door. When we were momentarily alone, her demeanor changed completely. "You think you're so perfect," she said. "You'll see, everyone already thinks you're the villain in this story." The drive home was quiet, except for Jacob asking for ice cream, which I caved on. Sue me, we both needed a win. As he ate his chocolate cone in the back seat, I realized the full extent of Claire's narrative control. She's positioned herself as the repentant wife while painting me as unforgiving and bitter. And my family bought it completely. I'll try to respond to comments, but I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow about updating our custody agreement, so might be slow to reply. When we got home, I put Jacob to bed and then spent half the night documenting everything. Every canceled visit, every inappropriate comment, every manipulation tactic. I'm creating a detailed timeline with dates, screenshots of texts, and notes about witnesses. I'm done being passive about this. I called my lawyer first thing Monday morning. She agrees that Claire's behavior is concerning and potentially escalating. We're going to formally document her visitation inconsistencies and discuss modifying our custody agreement to include more specific guidelines about communication and schedule changes. My sister texted this morning saying she's disappointed in my harsh approach, but I'm beyond caring about everyone's opinion at this point. This isn't about me versus Claire or who wins the narrative. It's about protecting Jacob from a mother who treats parenthood like a part-time hobby she can pick up when it suits her image. Keith from the support group suggested I consider requesting that exchanges happen at a supervised visitation center rather than our homes, especially given Claire's recent unpredictability. It seems extreme, but after the intervention and her threat, I'm starting to think he might be right. I never thought I'd be documenting interactions with my ex-wife as evidence for a criminal case, but here we are. I'll update again once I've met with my lawyer and have a clearer plan forward. Now for the final update. Final update on the Claire situation. First off, thank you all for the incredible support through this 3-part saga. Your advice literally changed how I handled everything. It's been about a month since that disastrous intervention at my parents' house, and I've spent most of it documenting everything. I've kept a detailed log of every canceled visit, inappropriate comment, manipulation attempt, and attempts to involve my family. My lawyer's been really impressed with how thorough I've been. Claire's reconciliation campaign has only intensified since I refused to play along at my parents' house. Last week, she actually showed up at Jacob's preschool claiming there was a family emergency and tried to take him early. Thankfully, the school followed protocol and called me to verify. When I explained there was no emergency, Claire apparently threw a mini tantrum in the school office. Jacob's teacher later told me she'd been updating their emergency contact lists after recent incidents. I've also heard through mutual friends that Claire's law firm is getting concerned about her recent behavior and performance. Apparently, she's been showing up late, missing deadlines, and getting emotional during meetings. The rumor is that her position might be in jeopardy if she doesn't get it together soon. I'm not celebrating this news, but it does explain why she's been escalating her efforts to fix our family. After consulting with my lawyer, I decided to invite Claire to meet at a neutral public location, a cafe near our old house, to discuss co-parenting boundaries. My hope was to de-escalate the situation before she did something truly destructive to herself or our custody arrangement. I got there early to grab a corner table. When Claire walked in, I wasn't surprised to see her in casual clothes. She slid into the seat across from me with a practiced smile, immediately reaching for my hands across the table. I casually picked up my coffee mug instead, and her smile faltered for just a second before she reset her expression. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, "and I realize now that I need to earn back your trust. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, even taking a step back at work." I listened carefully, sipping my coffee to give myself time to respond calmly. "I appreciate that you want to be more involved in Jacob's life," I finally said, "but I need to be clear. Reconciliation isn't on the table, Claire. We need to focus on being effective co-parents." Her expression hardened for just a split second before the tears appeared. "You're punishing me for one mistake," she said, her voice trembling perfectly. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Your parents agree with me." This was the moment I'd been preparing for. I calmly slid a folder across the table containing printed screenshots of text messages where she'd called Jacob a burden during our divorce, along with a visitation calendar I'd made highlighting all her canceled visits in different colors. "This wasn't one mistake, Claire," I said quietly. "This was a series of choices. You didn't just leave me, you left Jacob, and only after Marcus rejected you did you suddenly want your family back. That's when the facade completely cracked. You think you're so perfect with your cupcakes and playdates," she hissed, leaning in. "You've turned everyone against me. I'm his mother. I have rights." I refused to match her anger. Instead, I pulled out the co-parenting plan my lawyer helped me prepare and placed it on top of the folder. "I'm not trying to keep Jacob from you," I explained. "I want you to have a relationship with him, but it needs to be consistent and appropriate. These are boundaries, not punishments." She must have suddenly realized people at nearby tables were watching our interaction because she quickly composed herself. She took the co-parenting document, stood up, and walked out with the cafe bell jangling sharply behind her. The moment reminded me of all the times she'd walked out during our marriage when confronted with anything uncomfortable. That evening, the texts started flooding in. My mom was disappointed in how harshly I'd treated Claire. My dad thought I was being unnecessarily rigid. But interestingly, my sister's tone had completely changed. After I forwarded her some of Claire's more concerning texts about Jacob, my sister finally saw the real Claire behind the act. "I had no idea," she texted. "I'm so sorry I pressured you." That night, as I tucked Jacob into bed, I noticed something had shifted. For weeks, he'd been asking when Mommy was coming home, if we were going to be a family again. But that night, he just chatted about his upcoming preschool art show and whether we could have pancakes for breakfast. The real fallout came 3 days later. Claire didn't show up for her scheduled visit with Jacob on Saturday morning. I tried calling but got no answer, so we went ahead with our backup plan of visiting the Children's Museum. Around noon, my phone exploded with notifications. A mutual friend had sent me a link to Claire's work profile, which had been removed from the law firm's website. Then another friend forwarded a social media post from one of Claire's coworkers, vaguely referencing inappropriate workplace behavior and consequences finally catching up. By evening, I'd heard from multiple sources that Claire had been asked to take a leave of absence after she'd had a complete meltdown in a client meeting, apparently bringing up her personal life and crying about her stolen family. On Sunday night, Claire finally called. She sounded different and genuine for once. She said she was checking into a wellness center for a few weeks to get her head straight and asked if I could send Jacob a card from her. It was the first reasonable request she'd made in months. I've set up a video call for Jacob to talk to her this weekend, supervised by me. My lawyer thinks this could actually be a positive development. Claire getting the help she needs might lead to more stable co-parenting in the future. We're cautiously optimistic, but maintaining clear boundaries. As for me, I'm focusing on moving forward. I've picked up a couple more catering clients, and I'm even thinking about launching a small meal prep business I can run from home while Jacob's at school. For the first time in ages, I feel like I'm not just surviving, but actually building something new. I genuinely can't keep up with all the messages from other single parents sharing similar stories about exes who only wanted reconciliation after their affair partners dumped them. And to everyone wondering about my sister, yes, we're good now. She's actually been incredibly supportive since seeing Claire's texts and is planning to visit next month to spend quality time with Jacob. This community has been an incredible source of strength through this entire ordeal. From validation when I doubted myself to practical advice that literally saved me legally. I'll definitely pay it forward whenever I see someone going through something similar.